Brad Williams, Frugal Finance, the Yeeks factor. I call it the Yeeks factor. Why? Because it is so foreign and it's so simple, but it's so complex. It's called equivalence. What do I mean by equivalence? Throughout the preceding courses, we have used the term equivalence without defining exactly what the term meant. This was done intentionally in order to introduce the idea that two cash flow series of profiles are the same at some specific interest rate K if their present values are equal using an interest rate of K. You're going, what? We will now define equivalence. Equivalence means the state of being equal in value. So the idea is generally known in the comparison of two or more cash flow profiles. Specifically, two or more cash flow profiles are the same if their time value of money at a common point in time are equal. Equivalence means two things are equal in value, especially when comparing cash profiles and finances. If two cash flow profiles have the same value at a certain point in time, they're considered equivalent. For instance, if you're comparing receiving $1322.50 2 years from now to receiving $1,000 today, and both are worth the same at 15% annual interest rate, they're equivalent. Have I lost you yet? It's something you don't think about. It's absolutely critical. Absolutely critical you get this down. Why? Because as we move further, you have to use equivalent in order to match up profiles to avoid arbitrage. And we'll get into futures, we're going to get into swaps, we're going to get into some fixed income stuff. And equivalence comes into play. So indifference is related to equivalence. It means you don't have a preference between two options because they're equally valuable. If you're indifferent between receiving $1322.50 2 years from now or receiving $1,000 today, it means you're fine with either because they have the same value to you. For example, if you're asked if $1322.50 2 years from now is the same as $1,000 today at 15% interest rate, you check their values using present value or future value calculations. If they're equal, then you could say you're indifferent between the two options. In simpler terms, equivalence means things are worth the same. And indifference means you don't care which options you choose because they're equally valuable to you. Not something you carry around in your back pocket. But if you're going to delve into finance, this is something that I was never taught. I had to go in, and I still struggle with this because I don't think about it. As you work through these sessions, it'll start popping up. Then you're going to start equating equivalence and indifference to your calculations. So, questions. Are the following two cash flows equivalent at 15% a year? We just went through this one. How does it work? Compare worths at T. So, present value $1322.50 times 1.15 negative 2 second year is equal to $1,000. Here you go, $1322. They're equivalent. And here's the same thing twice, just a different calculation. You can see I did the long way and the short way. Right here, present value number 2 is equal to $1,000. They're equivalent. Compare worths at T of O, future value, $1,000. So now we're reversing it. We're taking that $1,000 times, and this is basic stuff. This goes back to the very first session here, but I never spoke about equivalence. All we're doing is reversing this. We were dividing earlier. Well, here we're doing that same approach. Remember, P is equal to 1 divided by 1 plus 10 to the second. Well, here, that's exactly what we're doing. Here we're looking at the future value of this $1,000. Here we looked at the present value. Remember, future value, present value. We're just flipping them over, and they're equivalent. So you can ask yourself, $1,000 today is going to be worth $1323 in 2 years. You can give me the $1,000 today, or you can give me $1323 in 2 years. It's the same thing. Compare worth. Here we got $1322. This is in 1 year. This is future value and present value. $1322 times 115, $1150. This should be year 1. If you look at this, this is the 4th year right here. You can do this if you want. I'm not going to, but just go 1,000 times 1.15 to the first, second, third, fourth, etc. You're going to see the comparison. Basically, we took $1322 1322.50. 115 to the 15th is equal to 2313. That should be year 4, and so on and so forth. So to summarize this, I took these numbers. Here are my computations. You have 1150. You have this 1150 here. This is just the 15%. There's no compounding here. This is just annual compounding. This is a simple equivalence comparison. If we discount this back, all we're doing is recognize here the power. We got the power to 1. We put the negative in there, and that will reverse it. In terms of the equivalence, we can use this. This is just your annual compounding. But then if we use this, all we're doing is taking this 1322 and discounting it back 1 year, and we're going to get this equivalence. You can say 2011-36 is equivalent to 1150 year 1. In terms of explaining this, 1749 is equivalent of 2011. This is year 4. This is year 5. So this is the indifferences here. You know, do you want $2,011.36 in year 5, or do you want 1749.01 in year 4? It doesn't matter. They're going to compute the same. You can look at and you can see the comparison, and they match up. Here to here or here to here is equivalent. However you want to word it, you can see how it translates. I know it's not something you think about, but it's something that you need to try to incorporate. Now, I don't know why we have 2313 here, because here's the simple math right here. This should be 2011, 1000, and they're using 1322.50. And here's the 1322.50. It should be 1749, 2011. Let me know what your thoughts are here, why these numbers are different. Note that the selection of the point in time, which make the comparison, is completely arbitrary. You should be able to look at this and say they're indifferent here. So the present value of the cash flow is given by this crazy old formula using the simple payment. We get this uniform. I don't know what we're trying to compare here. Moving 16 forward in time to times 6, 2986. This is at year 6. That's similar to what we're doing here. But EV negative 400 minus, that's what we did here. In this last section, we have this, what sum of money at time equals 6 is equivalent to the cash flow profiles shown in 214 if I is equal to 10%. Here's the example. We have these cash flows, and they're all over the place. So you got negative 400, 100, 100, 100. And what is the equivalent of all of this? Well, in the end, it's going to be 1685 forward at t is equal to 6. Here is time is equal to 1686. But 10%, a positive cash flow of 2986 at t equals 6 is equivalent to the cash flow profiles in 214. Here is what we're talking about. Here's the formula. Here is the workout. And what I did is I broke it down so you can systematically go through this thing and try to figure out what we're trying to do here. I'm not going to explain it to you. This is just brute force. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. A lot of this stuff is going to be brute force. In other words, you're going to have to practice. You can see what we're trying to do here. We have this negative 400, okay, at time 1. Then we have $100 at 10% at negative 1. Then we have times 1 point, so then we have year 3. Then we have 3. Then we have this other $100. We have this other 100, and then we have 0 and then 100. So basically what we're doing is you have to look at the time periods and do some brute force stuff. Anyway, I know it's finance. Sometimes it's obscure. This is obscure. This is something that when you're the analyst for XYZ company, you may be in a situation where you're just scratching your head, and then collectively you're going to email me. And I'm going to say, well, let's just see if we can brute force this thing. Brad Williams, Frugal Finance. Thanks for watching.